Dead as a Doornail, Book 6 of the Stan Kraychik Mysteries. Author, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Press, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 7. It's around 2 o'clock. When I get to Tremont Street, there's a storefront diagonally across from me, right at the corner of Clarendon Street. The building has a white marble facade, and it looks as though it might have been a grand hotel once, back in the late 1800s. A giant sign blazons above two big display windows and identifies the place in large, loopy lettering. Lots of scroll work, very feminine. Myron's Domestic Art. And below that, slightly plainer letters read, "For the traditional house beautiful." Myron told me he had a store here. He forgot to tell me you can't miss it. I figure I might as well observe one of my soon-to-be neighbors in his natural habitat, so I cross the wide street and go inside. Opening the door sets a small bell tinkling over my head. A quick look around tells me that Myron sells nostalgia, specifically tableware and appliances from the 50s. It's all here, everything that once defined a standard prescription for gracious middle-class entertaining in America. Your mother or grandmother threw it all out, and now you can own it for 10 times its original price. But what is money when you can have and hold the very artifacts that gave June Cleaver orgasms? The scent of Myron's expensive cologne permeates the place. Now, if he was a genuine obsessive-compulsive, he'd be dousing himself with Old Spice or Aqua Velva, not some $200 an ounce eau de boo from Maison Malate. I just about get the door closed when a voice calls out, "Wipe your feet!" Reflexively, I scrub my booties on the brown fibrous mat. I also remove my mirrored shades and cap. Their constant squeezing is beginning to bother my head. Myron pops up from behind the counter, flushed with exertion. Without his fawn-colored fedora, he looks like Humpty Dumpty's love child. When he sees me, he lets out a loud, hen-like squawk. So apparently, Mother Goose is in the gene pool, too. "Oh, sorry," says Myron. "That was quite a shriek, wasn't it?" He sounds more impressed than sorry. "But I just had authentic period linoleum installed, and it's just been waxed. And I don't need people dripping water all over it." I say, "Linoleum is to walk on." "Just wipe your feet," he says, not sharing my outlook on things material. Then, as though he recognized me, "Oh, it's you, Dollface, from the cafe. You took your disguise off. What brings you here?" "You invited me." "Most people don't take my invitations to heart." "I can leave if that's what you want." No, he clucks. "You're here now, and you already tracked water in with you, so you might as well look around. You've got the place to yourself, thanks to this insane weather. Just make sure you wipe your feet." Once again, I make the requisite motions. Myron says, "Straight ahead is the aluminum. The displays are arranged by hammered, anodized, and brushed media. Within each category are platters, tumblers, trays, and other accessories. Beyond that is the stainless steel. To your right are the electrical appliances, coffee makers, waffle irons, toasters, and some rare items you don't see anymore. To your left is dinnerware, Fiesta, Holiday, Homer, Laughlin, etc. Glassware is against the back wall, and... "Thanks," I say. "I'll just look around." I take a few steps, but somehow Myron manages to be standing beside me, spaghetti mop in hand, sopping up the odd drops of water around my chocolates. He says, "Everything here is American made in the good old US of A." "Some of it looks brand new," I say, trying to sound interested. "And some of it is," said Myron. "Those are the gold mines when you find a factory-sealed full-chrome 1958 Sunbeam Mixmaster with stainless bowls and all the accessories. That's a slice of heaven. I don't make things like that anymore, but even my pre-owned goods are unconditionally guaranteed. I don't sell anything I wouldn't have in my own home." Satisfied that his linoleum is bone dry, he returns behind his counter while I look at a few of the objects. What's on those tags? I said. Stock numbers? Dollface, it's called the price? Myron settles himself near the cash register, which is itself an antique. Was there something in particular you were looking for? I had anything anyone could ever want. That was debatable. Actually, I say, I'm looking for information. Information, says Myron, nodding his head uncertainly as if he's not sure he's going to see any money from me. Are you a collector? He says. Do you have something to sell? I'm always looking for new inventory. I prefer full sets, of course, but there is a decent market for open stock items. I do pride myself on offering top dollar for top quality goods. I say it bluntly to shut the guy up. It's about the person who was killed this morning. The one you mentioned at the cafe? I'm doing a little investigating. Investigating, he says. Does that mean you're a dick? Oh, are you a dick? I've always liked the word. I'm not a dick, I say. Well, don't get huffy, says Myron. I'm not Betty Crocker either. Trouble is, this is the second time I thought of a word, and next thing I know, the guy says it to me. First it was folly, now it's dick. I don't like the relationship we're building. Oh, says Myron, and he clicks his tongue. Now isn't that sad? Suddenly he's gazing past me out of the front window of his store. Isn't it just too bad about that? About what? I said, turning to look. That place, that display, it's a blight on the neighborhood. I try to see what he's looking at. You mean the store across the street? There's a new storefront over there, and that looks like some futuristic designer's hallucination. The sign reads, Thorin's Domestic Tech, and directly underneath that, for today's urban digs. I mentioned the similarity to Myron's sign. Yes, he says bitterly. The poor deluded creature thinks he's competing with me. But my customers would never set foot in a place like that. Why would they? Just look at that window, I swear. He does it just to provoke me, displaying all that snotty imported merchandise, with all those naked men using it. From what I can see, Myron's competition has created freestanding two-dimensional mannequins, from photos of bodybuilders blown up to life size, then mounted on foam, board, and cutout. They're only photographs, I say. And they're not really naked. They're more like giant paper dolls waiting for their clothes. Myron mutters. I never saw paper dolls with bulges like that. I think they're kind of cute. Some people have no taste. Some people have eclectic taste, I say. Which means they don't know how to design a unified living space. Thorin should stick to closets, since that's his real expertise. So you know the guy personally? Myron says. I believe in knowing as much as I can about everybody. Where are you from, anyway? Boston, I say. Which part? Back Bay. Well, no wonder. No wonder what? Myron says. It's another world once you cross Columbus Avenue. Works both ways, I say. Then I get myself back on track. Speaking about knowing people, did you know the person who was killed this morning? Why should I? Said Myron. You mentioned it at the cafe. Yes, and? So maybe you know who it was, you being the neighborhood archivist and all. Myron looks at me with little brown button eyes. I asked him directly, do you know who it was? He smiles vaguely, almost charitably, but still with those lifeless little eyes. I guess you really aren't a dick, he says. Not if you ask questions like that. Look, Dollface, if you want to play Nancy Drew, why don't you just tell me who it is who got killed, since you obviously know, and then we can see if I know him too. Does that make your game a little easier? I'm always compared to Miss Drew and never to the Hardy Boys. I said to Myron, you seem to know the victim was a him. It's a 50-50 guess, Dollface. Don't, I say, putting up my hand. Don't say. Myron puckers his mouth and mutters quietly. Face. That's it. Cool schmool Dick Schmick, I say. His name was Tim Chignassi. Is that so? Says Myron, obviously pleased to fluster me. And he was a building contractor? Really? So did you know him? Myron places his chubby hands, palms down on the countertop, then takes a deep breath and leans forward, sticking out his overfed jaw for emphasis. Tim Shaughnessy, or Tamantha, as some of us knew him, was a little pixie from Southie. That's South Boston, in case you Back Bay types don't know your local geography. Tamantha was... how can I put this kindly? Tamantha insinuated himself around the neighborhood. Insinuated? Myron scowls as though I've spoiled the flow of a well-rehearsed monologue. He says, Tamantha was a construction worker, but you already know that. What's your point? Oh, dollface, what's yours? You already know everything I'm telling you. Who do you think you're kidding? It's whom, I say. And would you do me a favor? What's that? Said Myron. Don't call me dollface. Oh, he's a touchy dick, isn't he? Oh, that's right, says Myron. You're not a dick. Well, whatever you are, and whomever you are, let me tell you something. The South End may appear to thrive on restaurants and retail stores, but there's another whole industry that thrives on the South End itself, and that industry is construction. And bless his provincial little Southie heart, Tamantha never subcontracted any of the local people. The boys who live right here in the neighborhood, he never ordered goods or materials from our local businesses, and he never contributed a thing back to us. Our little Tammy was an expert at take, and that's all the cute ones ever do, isn't it? Gimme, but we have a community support here. I say, Tim's business was just getting started. He needed to get on his feet before... Don't you defend him! You have some pretty strong feelings about this. Myron brings himself up short. I feel nothing, he says. Neither does Timmy, I say. Not now. Don't get sentimental, dollface. It doesn't suit you. And why are you so concerned? You say you're investigating and you try to sound like some grave, impartial force for justice. But I suspect your connection with Tamantha goes beyond that. I think you knew little Tammy on a personal basis. What do you mean? Don't get touchy. Did I say sex? It was strictly business, I say. And then you know as much as I do what happened to him this morning and why someone would kill him. But I don't, Myron. That's the point. That's why I'm asking people about him. Being a dick, he says. I glower at him to no effect. By what authority, he says. Freedom of speech. And by what motivation? The police think I may have been the intended victim. It's the red hair, I guess. Yes, says Myron. There is a similarity. Actually, it's rather striking at first, which probably explains my surprise when you first came in here without your hat. You probably reminded me of Timmy, poor thing, and it brought up some emotional things. Myron the chameleon. It's understandable, I say with a voice oozing psychotherapeutic balm. I can play chameleon too. After all, we are discussing the death of someone we both knew. Yes, says Myron. And if the police think the killer meant to get you, well, maybe you ought to be careful. Then Myron's eyes get a faraway look in them again. I turn around to see what he's looking for. But there's nothing new outside the window. His voice sounds distracted as he speaks. Well, even if Tamantha was a self-centered little cocktease, he certainly didn't deserve to die. The sudden superficial melancholy gives him the look of a beardless Santa who just heard the toy makers' union is on strike. At least it's a discernible emotion. Myron's voice quavers as he says, No one deserves to die like that. Like what, I say. Myron's little eyes study my face. Murdered, he says. Whoever the victim was supposed to be. Tammy is the one who's dead and gone now. You said you saw the police this morning. Oh, dollface. They were crawling all over that place. What else did you see? Myron gives me a reptilian leer. Do you mean what, dollface, or who? It's whom, I say. And don't call me that. He dismisses me with a flutter of his plump fingers. What do you care what I saw this morning, or whom? You're safe enough, aren't you? Working for the police. I'm not working for them. No, he says. I could have sworn I saw... Myron seems to be recalling what he saw from outside my house this morning. Does that include me being driven off in a police cruiser? Are you sure you're not with the boys in blue, he says. I don't know. Then maybe you're working on your own, he says, Or aren't you working at all? Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting. You're not a tick. My patience with this clown is just about up. Besides, I keep seeing little particles of myself in him. Words and perceptions that we almost share. And I don't want to believe that old maxim that says we become whatever we fear the most. I say, maybe I'll be back sometime. No hurry, dollface. By the way, I say, how's your dog? My dog, he says with a curious scowl. I saw you leave the cafe this morning with a dog. Oh, you mean my dog, says Myron. Didn't I say dog? Myron says, Betty is a star. Is that her name? His, says Myron. Betty is a he, and he's in back. Some people don't appreciate him in the store. Is he named after Betty Crocker? No, says Myron. Betty Davis? No, he says again. And that great woman's name is pronounced Bet, not Betty. Is that so? I ask dubiously. Myron eyes me impatiently. Look, dollface, it's obvious you'll never guess, so I'll just tell you. My dear Betty's namesake is Betty Furness. You probably don't remember her. Afraid not, Myron. What kind of dog is he anyway? A poodle? A poodle? Says Myron. Do you think I'd own a poodle? Actually, I figured you more for a collie or a beagle. Hey, what? Says Myron. Since you're such a purist for the 50s. I can make exceptions, says Myron. Betty is a Portuguese water dog. And I'm sure there's a good reason you chose him. There certainly is, he says. But before he tells me, we hear the muffled sound of a woman's voice raised in anger. Her words are indiscernible, but the emotion is clear. I glance toward Myron. He wrinkles his forehead impishly. These walls are like paper, he says, and rolls his eyes toward the common wall he shares with his neighbor. Not like the old days. You hear everything now. I head for the door, ready to leave. Myron says, by the way, do you know who's handling the estate? The estate? Yes, he says. I'm wondering about Tamantha's household items. I shrug, then put on my visor cap and sunglasses and leave the place. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.